again, lose 4th of July. Okay, so we're going to finish with this and then on to 4th of July. Do you have one other question? Try to answer. You said, can you repeat that? And we've heard that. There was, and I think the mayor's here too, so she can speak to that probably too. But we had a series of complaints, I think 40-some-ish or more. We recognize that there's a noise concern. That was the first time we've had that event, so understand we're learning too. It did get better. It was not perfect, so we have to work on that. And we are working with the promoter to change placement of speakers. We have an app we can use now for sound control. We can follow the ordinance that we have. So we're working on that. Will it be exactly what we want? I hope so. I don't know, but we're also going to include the neighbors, talk to them, and see if we can figure out some way to make that work. We also know there were people that were doing things on the extremity of the property they shouldn't have been. So we're working on more security. I hate to use the word toilets, but we need more toilets because some of what was happening, people were, relieving themselves where they shouldn't be. So things like that are all part of a larger event. We're working on that. What I want people to understand is, yes, it's a change. Yes, it can be painful, but I also want people to realize there is an economic impact there too, as long as we do our due diligence and make sure we don't impact you as severely as you said you were, and I respect that. We've got to work on that. But we don't want to lose sight of the fact that they bring a lot of dollars to our community. There were restaurants in Old Town that said they never were as busy. They didn't know why. We're promoting that better. Economic impact of the overall for the city's better, and so we're working with them to understand that and talk to them. So again, it's not all about dollars and cents. What I'm talking about is how do we balance an event and an event center with the needs of the community, which I'm listening, and then also the positive impact. So we're working on that, and I'm hopeful that after this next year when they're here, I hope you come back at one of these discussions or somewhere else and say, hey, Don, it was better. I'm still not happy, but I'm happier. And with your help and our pursuit of making you as happy as we can, we're going to do the best we can.
I don't think anyone wants to be unhappy. We all want to be happy. But I think the restaurants are really busy because they smoke so much ganja.
Well, I'm not going to speak to values like that, but hey, if I'm happy if they're happy. So the restaurants told me.
Hi, Don. My name is Sue Engel. I'm on the Auburn Recreation District Board. My question for you is, what is the structure of your board? How many people are on your board currently? You're the CEO. Who's the governing entity above you? Is it CDFA? Who appoints people on your board? And finally, my last question is, if someone wanted to file a complaint, what is that process?
So the structure is the state of California owns the facility. CDFA through F&E is the compliance arm who oversees the board. There are normally 9 board members. We currently have 6. So there's 3 openings. So anyone who's interested in volunteering and want to be part of it, you go to caa.gov and you can fill out an application. And then if you vet, I don't know what that means because I was on the board at one time as well. I still don't know why I was put on the board, but I was. But that's where you would go for that. As far as if you want to, as the CEO, I report to the board. The board appoints the CEO, and then the staff, Aaron and Sonia and our maintenance team that's here, they report to me. So that's that structure. As far as a complaint, it depends what the complaint is, I guess. You can always start with our office, tell us what it is you're looking for, and we can direct you. So if it's something specific to policy, that would be the board. Fiduciary is the board. If it's something larger than that, if it's something that's bothering you with maybe what the state does, then we can connect you to those direct parties too. But you start with us so we can direct you to whatever asset or resource may be best for your case.
So they would tell us if a board member needed to be replaced, how does that happen?
So they won't tell you why, if that's what you're asking me, because it's considered personnel. But if there's 9 board members, which means we have 6, there's 3 seats currently open, and they all serve a 4-year term, and they usually will continue on unless the governor removes them, or they resign, or they pass away, or something like that happens. But we've had board members as long as 17, 15 years. So.
I thought I read in the paper that there were board members that were fired
So I'm not sure what the word fired is, so if you're referring to removed, yes, there have been some that have been removed, but I can't speak to why they're removed because they don't tell me. I can tell you that for the last 2 years, we've had closed sessions where the board goes into a closed session, the public's not there. I was only there maybe 1 or 2 times, so the rest of the time I was not there. But in there is CDFA legal and state representatives, so a lot of discussions going in closed session, as they should. So I don't know what happens in those closed sessions. I don't know why a person's removed. I usually get the information, 2 or 3 days after because it has to go through a process. Usually the chair gets it before me. Sometimes we get it at the same time, but they never tell us why someone is removed.
So if a citizen wanted to file a complaint, say, or people that were in this, just me.
Yep.
I'm not on the board,
Sure.
I'm not a member of the fair. So who would you file it with?
Well, again, I can send you the information, the person at the state, but if they're removed, they're not going to tell you why.
No,
Because that's considered
if
personal.
we wanted to file a complaint against the board.
Oh, the board.
The
I
board.
see.
Who do we contact?
Good question. So I would suggest you send me an email. My email for all of you, so you know, is ceo@goldcountryfair.com. So ceo@goldcountryfair.com. And then I can find out who that goes to. I don't have that answer. I apologize.
Thank you.
I had a question over here.
I'd like to ask if you are going to make any preparations to, a seat on the board should be set aside for somebody who lives within walking distance, because you guys are making decisions that really impact us. And for instance, how could you agree to 4 or 5 years of dry diggings? You have no idea. It made our homes unusable. And had you talked to us and the neighborhood been involved, we probably would have said, that's a great event, but it's just too big. We're a small town fairgrounds. And yet by the same token, more of an effort wasn't made to keep the Mandarin Festival, which is agricultural, it's local. Can you speak to that and tell me what you are actually going to do to give the community more insight and input into what goes on? We need some transparency and a voice.
Well, first of all, we have 6 board members. 5 of them live and reside in Auburn.
Do they within
So,
walking
well, the walking distance requirement, good luck. Maybe the governor would do that, but,
Auburn
but we
is
do
Auburn.
have 5 out of 6 board members from Auburn, which I think is fantastic, right? You would agree with that, I hope. And then as far as talking to the community about events, yes, I agree, we need to be more transparent, and that's why one of the things that we're doing is this today, and then we'll do it other times, so it's not always in the morning. The other thing is too, we're going to make more of an effort with our neighbors, and you haven't even been contacted yet, but we're gonna have a neighborly meeting as well, so we can bring in people that I recognize, Pleasant Street and over here by the ball field and over this way. There's a lot of you that get impacted. So we're gonna make an effort to talk to you, bring you in, see what your concerns are, try to answer them all. But at the end of it, you have to remember too that whatever we come up with, it's gonna be based on trying to make sure we can give you the best and safest event that we have here. And then hopefully with your input, you can give us some direction how to make that possible. But decisions will be made on events. You may not like those events. But I'm here to say that our community is very diverse. There's a lot of events that we have now here. And I welcome that diversity, not only for us, but for the kids, the future generations. Seeing that's a positive thing. Staying just focused on local, again, we're the 20th DAA, so we're not just Auburn, we're through the whole county of Placer. You just have to remember that. It doesn't mean you're not important, doesn't mean they're important more or less, it just means we're all part of the same district.
I don't think anybody is against diversity and unique events. I just don't want them rattling my dishes. That's all. You know?
And like I said, I appreciate that, and we're gonna have conversation. I don't know if I can stop rattling your dishes, but we're certainly gonna see if there's ways we can make it more enjoyable for everyone.
Question is Zach that had her hand raised last time, so we're gonna go back there.
So, understanding the economic impact that the Mandarin Festival does have on this area and knowing that it's not going to be coming back most likely, can you elaborate on what business development efforts you guys are taking to bring in new events and new revenue to this fairgrounds?
That's a great question. So again, I'm a little bit more of an optimist. I don't think they're not gonna come back. I think they will be here. But if they have a better business model when they move to Roseville, wonderful. I want them to have every success because it's ag-based and it's important for our community. As far as events and things we're trying to do, since 2017, we have contacted, we reach out, we try to get anybody we can who might be interested in doing an event here. We have 38.6 acres, approximately 11 buildings, so we have a lot to offer. We have added probably 20 new events in the last couple of years that are very large. We just had a My Walk and what was it called? Auburn Indian Community event, so which was wonderful. I didn't even know that they had that kind of an event. So there were things for everybody of all ages, resources in the community, business partners in the community, food vendors. I mean, it was a wonderful event. So there's one example. We had Dry Diggins. I know you've heard things about that. That's a new event. We have quite a few new events. We had ANRAC came a couple years ago with their, I hate to say this, but what's the ball called again now? The Redneck Prom. It didn't do well with that name, but we're back to it anyway. Yeah, so they raise over $1 million for kids in need, widows of war veterans, families in need. I mean, there's all these events we're pursuing on a regular basis. We had for me, as selfish, we just had our first baseball card convention here. We had spring was the Edge of Spring, another wonderful new event. Yeah, so, and we have a circus starting this weekend, so we are constantly reaching out. As a matter of fact, when we do our reviews, both these young ladies are responsible for at least 2 new events a year, as well as myself. So we're doing very well. We are actually at a pace to not only do more than last year, but last year was a record year for us in terms of events. So we are looking, we are interested. Went to a legislative day last week, and Kevin Kiley, you may know that name, he's reached out and they're gonna do a training session here. So we're looking at all kinds of venues. We'd really like to do stuff during the week. So if you know anybody that wants to do a sales training or employee training or looking for employment, we just met with some people and we're hoping to have it this year, but if not, for sure next year. We're gonna bring a bunch of kids here, younger kids, a job search. Also let people know that it's not just a college education, it's necessarily your path, but we're gonna have some contractors here that actually will have real jobs. So they go through some interview practices, they wanna rent the whole fairgrounds, they wanna make it food, drink, and let people know there's a lot of opportunities out there that we're not aware of, because from the academic side, it's one way, but there's a lot of plumbers and electricians that are in desperate need. And if you've ever tried to call one and get one in an emergency, that college education doesn't really help you. So not that I'm against it, I have one, but this would be one of those things where people could have that opportunity. So I hope that answers your question.
I have a question on this side.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Alicia Watkins. Your answer about the Mandarin Festival came off rather disingenuous. They have a fine business model, and I believe the increase in the fee that you were going to be charging them was around $20,000 or right around there. That was going to take away money from what they use for charities. And this is the second charge that a local event and business has been charged that just came out of the blue, and during an economy that is outrageously oppressing to all of us. I think the public would like to know where these giant fees are just coming out of the blue to ask Old Town Pizza to pay $15,000 in a sponsorship fee when their normal vendor fee was $3,500 for every event. As a CEO, I would think that you would want to do more things to keep business and attract business, not try to extort businesses. And I believe a lot of people in the community would like transparency when it comes to why these enormous fees are happening.
Okay, first of all, I'm just curious, do you know me?
No, I don't.
Okay, but I'm disingenuous, you said.
No, your answer was disingenuous.
But how do you know that?
Are you calling the
Well,
people?
no, the reason I'm trying to ask you is because it's not disingenuous. What I'm trying to explain to you is you've got information that you're giving me that you think is all factual. When I'm trying to tell you it's not all factual. I'm trying to take the higher road here and say that I would do anything for Gary to be here. Love the Mandarin Festival, good for the community. But decisions are made that aren't always made on one person's side. So I can't control everything, right? I can only ask. I can only say you want to participate, you want to collaborate, you want to be a partner. I explained to you why the rates got higher for him, because he had a 5-year period there where we weren't open, a 3-year-old contract, and the rental rates are recommended by the CEO to the finance committee. The finance committee recommends that to the full board, and then the full board debates whether or not those are acceptable within the budget that's been submitted or not. So when the final budget got approved, those rental rates got approved. When you rent the whole facility, if you take a 5% increase over 5 years per annum and add it to every single building, it seems like a lot. I'm not going to debate with you the numbers because I don't have the contract in front of me, but it's suffice to say it was not $20,000. And if you want to come in and sit down with me, happy to show you our original discussions. We never even got to a proposed contract because we didn't get to that final negotiation. So I'm not disingenuous. I care very much about Mandarin Festival. I think they do a great job, and I don't want charities to suffer. But we also donate to a lot of charities here. If you come at the fair, you see the Hillman we take care of. We have the volleyball group here. We have 4-H. We have a lot of charities we take care as well. So these rates you're talking about are not meant to hurt or harm. We're living in a time where costs are very high, as you know. We're doing everything we can to keep it here. We invest back into the fairgrounds. We're not paying everybody a lot of extra money. I have the same size staff that we had back in 2017 at, just so you're aware, we did $600,000, we do 4.5 million now. And the only thing we've added is 2 maintenance people. So we're doing everything we can to keep our costs down. And unfortunately, sometimes events go the other way. My question to you would be is, why can't we get Mandarin to come back and talk to us about it? Because I would love to have them. So it's not disingenuous, it just didn't work, and I'm sorry about that. But I do wish them well, because they're a good entity.
Okay.
We have an add-on here.
I want to add to the Dry Diggins $15,000 sponsorship. So they are a group that rents our facility from us. They set their vendor fees and their sponsorship fees themselves. They just rent our facility. Their food vendors paid an exceptionally high price to be here to vend to these individuals that are attending the event. So they were basically comparing the 10 by 10 food vendors up on the field to this beautiful pavilion that Hotel Pizza was in. And for the price point for their vendors and them to compete as a vendor, the price point that they came up with for it to be fair was the $15,000. I would like to add that they did not ever negotiate with the promoter. There was probably room to negotiate that price. There was no communication between the two parties. The promoter had reached out multiple times trying to negotiate that and was never communicated back to us.
Okay, but what the owners of OTP have said is they would be out about $15,000 to $20,000 for that weekend that they were closed, and the vendor fee was $15,000. So the expectation would be for them to work the entire event for free?
No, the expectation was to communicate and to try and negotiate a reasonable fee. This party just chose not to negotiate. Unfortunately, there was no communication between the two. There was a proposed fee, and that's just where it ended.
Okay.
Got one question over here that's in your hand raised.
I just want to comment and clarify that if anyone's interested, what precipitated OTP issue leaving here is that the Fairgrounds violated their contract. And if anyone would like to come find more information about that, they can contact Don Cederman, the CEO.
I'm sorry, I have too many questions.
Okay.
So my question is, instead of your people that are having events just giving a flat amount, we deal and we negotiate. It's sort of like buying a new car. You go in and they give you the price, but then you have to dicker back and forth in order to get the price down. Why can't they just tell you what they absolutely need, and either you buy it or you don't buy it? I don't know that we have to negotiate everything we do.
So we do exactly what you said. We're a public entity, so all our rates are online. So when you come in and say, I'd like to rent the stage, I give you the price for the stage, whatever that may be, right? And if you say to me, Don, I can't do that, and here's why, and here's what I'd like to try to do with you, would you be interested in this, interested in that? I have, with the board, has granted me authority to negotiate up to a certain price level, but it's within that range of 20%. It's in the policy manual, it's in the books, so it's all published. So if you want to know what this costs, it's going to come to you at X. If you come to me and say, that's not going to work for me, Don, I can, within my scope of whatever policy they've given me, I can negotiate based on that. Or, if you're a nonprofit, you can do a charitable grant to the board and ask for some type of resolution that way. So it's not like we, for lack of a better word, dicker, and I know buying a car is horrible, that's why I try not to buy them. So I get that, it's not like that at all. We have standard prices that we have, and then we have a little bit of movement. For example, let's say you're a nonprofit and you say, hey Don, do you need ticket takers at the gate over here at Fair? And I say, absolutely. What's that value? And you say, well, $500. I'm just giving you a number. So it's possible that in exchange for that service, you would get a discount because we can show dollar value for dollar value. There's one example. In other cases, there's just no movement. It just is what the price is. But we try to work within certain people. Maybe you've been here multiple years and we try to figure out a way to help you because you've been such a great customer. But at the end of the day, people come into my office and I want them to know just what you said. An apple's an apple and an orange. When I took over, we didn't have that. We had free events, we had events with discounts for no apparent reason. It was a mess. And so we've worked very hard to get to what you just said, which is a public pricing system. Now the public pricing system seems high to some people, so obviously I get that. I go to the store all the time, I buy stuff all the time. What we're trying to do to answer that question is we reinvest back in this facility. It's old, it's antiquated, we're doing the best we can to add value to your event. So we've put back into this fairgrounds, I don't have the exact number, but last year alone, over $1 million back into the fairgrounds. So it's not like we're taking these rental rates and getting rich. So one of the things that I hear on Facebook a lot is, oh yeah, the CEO just wants a bonus, so he's doing all this so he can get a bonus. I don't get a bonus, that's against state for my job. I get paid the same whether we do well or we do poorly. I said this the other night, I don't like poorly, I like to do well. So I work very hard. These two over here work extremely hard, and trust me, if they can go flip a burger in some cases and get more. That's really not right. So we're trying to build a team where succession's a possibility, growth is a possibility, career opportunities are a possibility. So that takes planning, managing. So when you think of a rental rate, don't think of it as we're gouging you. Think of it as, are they using that in the best interest of the community and the fairgrounds? Could it be lower? I hear you. But understand it's not that we're gouging or trying to take advantage or run people off. We're trying to find ways, just like everybody else is, how do we make our dollar go a little further? How do we make our staff work a little harder? How do we add more personnel during the busy event season? All these are difficult. Our PG&E went from $8,900 to $14,500. That's every month. Well, do you get PG&E at where you're at? The rates are horrible, right? Pioneer Electric's helped us a little bit, but they're still high rates. Now, those are things we've got to deal with in a reality, right? It's not a vacuum, so, and that's okay. That's my job, is to manage that. We look at ways to use, we turned all our water that was unpotable to NID, which is not NID actually, it's, what's the other one? Thank you, PCWA. So all our irrigation now goes on that way, so our costs are much lower than they used to be. So we're trying to find ways to keep those rental rates as low as possible. I don't want to gouge anybody, but you also have to remember, we have to make sure we keep this place going. The state of, and I don't like talking about this because it makes us look weak, and I don't like to look weak, but we get $45,000 a year from the state of California. $2,500 of that's for training. Our training costs are about $5,000, so it doesn't even cover training. Our expenses are now almost $48,000 a month. So think that, roll that around a while. You can see how that's a lot of money that we've got to come up with. So
What are you training?
So training for, well, not just me, it's our board training, so that the board members can be better servers for the administration, that they can manage the fairground policy and fiduciary. I'm learning how to get different things. How do I manage my assets? Training for our team so that they know how to write a contract according to state requirements, so that we follow compliance regulations. So I'm not complaining about the fact we get so little money. What I'm trying to explain to you is that we are working very hard to ensure this place has sustainability. Not only now, but in the future. Most of you have been here a while, and you love this fairgrounds. It's the epicenter of who you are and what we are, correct? I want that to stay and I want it to increase. But it's only gonna happen if we all start to pitch in together. And yes, I've made mistakes, I've admitted that. Will I make mistakes in the future? Absolutely. Not because I want to, I'm human. But the thing is, I can honestly tell you every decision that I've made since I've been here as the CEO of the Fairgrounds has only had one thing in my mind, is how do I make the Fairgrounds better for the next person and the next generation? Have I screwed up? Yes. But that doesn't mean we aren't trying. It means that we just got to take that as information. I tell my team every time we meet, and they're smiling already, but on the interview and during the, when we do our review process, I said, when you make a mistake, it's just information. If you don't make a mistake, you're not working. So we work very hard, and yes, we're going to make mistakes. But having these discussions, having the opportunity to tell each other face to face what's bothering us, I think is wonderful. And I'm going to listen to you. But you also have to listen to what I'm saying too, so that somewhere in the middle, we can find that hopefully best solution.
I have him, her, and then back there. I'm trying.
I don't really have a question.
Just put it right by your,
Close to my mouth?
there you go.
Hey, takes me a while to be trained, but, I don't have a question, I have more of an observation. And my observation is this, and I won't tell you how long I have lived in Auburn, but it's been a very, very long time. And what concerns me, and like you said, this fairground is part of the community. You know, even though the state may own it, have been in the past, I'd sure hate like the son of a gun to see it gone. But what I am saying is that there's a migration of groups leaving, you know, this fairgrounds because of the money. I can understand your position. But what I'm really afraid of is eventually this thing is not going to support itself. And then what is going to happen? Is the state then going to sell the property? Or are they, you know, but that's my big concern, is that you keep, you know, prices keep being raised, and so people leave. It's like diminishing returns. But I'd sure hate like some of them to see this place gone. You know, I know the state would probably love to put most low-class housing in it, but this is a beautiful facility.
Well, let me answer that. Everything you said is excellent. Thank you for that observation. This is not going to become a low-cost housing facility. This is not going to become a homeless shelter. I know you. I can't promise it as a forever, but what I can tell you is, okay, I'll give you 3 facts that you can make the decision. How's that? I won't use the word promise. My hope is, how's that? A little better. Thank you for correcting me. My hope is that we're one of a very few amount of fairs that are actually profitable. So obviously the state in a down budget does not want to get rid of an asset. 2, we have a very active community and an agricultural commitment to this area, which is our mission, which is wonderful. We just built a new barn, we're looking to add another barn. So that's the second component, right? That's huge. The third component, which is the one that you said the most of, is, which worries me the most as the CEO, is we have a certain amount of people who, for whatever reason, are pulling away. As those people pull away, one of the things that I want to remind everybody about is that's your sense of community. When things are great, you know, you hear this phrase, you can do 100,000 things right and nobody cares. You do one thing wrong and they want to hang you from the nearest tree. And that's just the reality of the human nature spirit, right? But what keeps us from being something the state would be interested in is being busy and continuing to do things. It doesn't always have to be monetary. I'm just talking about selling trees here at Christmas time. I know they sell them in the high school parking lot, but whatever it may be, gathering here for events, the farmer's market, whatever it might be, walking through here, just keeping this place active. We're a very strong fairgrounds, thanks to the community and years of service from people like yourself. What I'm worried about is whoever stands here, he or she, shouldn't be the reason why we start to go different directions. What we need to do is figure out if our sense of community is the fairgrounds, then we have to make sure we protect that sense of community. Can we fix the person up here? Maybe, but it shouldn't be the reason that we're not supporting the fairgrounds. So I agree with you. There is a select group of people who are making it their task to encourage people not to be part of the fairgrounds, and that's their choice. I'm not faulting them, I'm not judging them, I'm just giving you an answer to what your observation. So if you look at those three things, I always ask myself the question, why would the state of California want to change something that's working? Where they're going to look at is facilities that are not making money, acreage sitting in the middle of a community that's losing money, then yeah, that's the tough decisions they're going to make. I don't have any control over that. Interesting thing about this position is that, yes, the state owns the fairgrounds, but many of you don't realize the state doesn't pay my check, or her check, wherever she went, I lost her. But we are a business agency, so everything we do here is how we pay everything. So I write the check to PG&E, I write the check to DCWA, I write the check to whoever it might be, my insurance, whatever the bills are, we pay all of those. And I already told you how much we get. Now, I'm not faulting the state. The budgets have changed, things have changed. We also are doing two things that will maybe encourage you, maybe not, but I share them with you. We started a new trade association, and I happen to be one of the founders of it. There's 12 CEOs, we're now at 20. So we were at a legislative day, which I mentioned to you earlier about Kevin Kiley. There's a lot of money there for resiliency funds. You say the word resiliency and people think homeless shelters and climate change, and they think the worst end of that. What they're not realizing is that's a pot of money that can be used by venues to improve their infrastructure needs. So God forbid when there's a tragedy and someone comes here, they go into a nice building with air conditioning, the roof doesn't leak, and those are funds. But the rest of the year, and hopefully we don't have any problems, then you've got this brand new facility, funds coming from outside the area, which would be well received because now we have a chance to improve things, correct? That's a great way to go. We say resiliency, I say it because that's the buzzword that the governor prefers. And we're gonna continue to chase that. Another one that we're chasing, which is grants. One of our newest board members that's coming on board happens to be a grant writer. We're trying to change the code, which is written in California code, commercial code, that says a state agency can't apply for a grant. Why is that? No one knows, except it's been there forever, right? So we're also trying to change that or reform it. That costs nothing to change code. It's just some writing some changes. And so we're working hard on how to sustain this place, how to keep it away from being the fears that you just mentioned, and I recognize those fears. But we're doing that, and rest assured that that's the future of all fairgrounds. They're trying to become event centers so they can keep them open, because there's a lot of communities just like this one where they're fairgrounds with the same problem. We have $2 billion fair network wide in infrastructure needs. You've been here a long time, and got Lonnie, I saw Lonnie over here. Remember Lonnie having water dripping all over mattresses, and oh my God, skunks running into her facility. We've had it all in a short period of time, and God love her, she's even had probably worse than that, but we're starting to make those changes, and that's something that we should look forward to. As we improve those things, people like the Mandarin Festival, this is a great venue. And now we got to figure out how to make sure it's a venue he wants again. That's where I have to figure that, and I'm working on it. Whether it's the right answer or not, I don't know, but I'm not going to give up because I value that. We've also had people say, well, he doesn't care about ag, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. We've invested more money in agricultural, with the exception of the Placer building, which we got through an SB5 grant through the state of California. We just bought a bunch of brand new small animal cages, thanks to the crab feed. We appreciate the community supporting that. They haven't had new cages in 30 plus years. We just redid what we call the JLA Shack, which is where the buyers enjoy a nice fine dinner. We just finally, after years of asking, we fixed that and it looks great. We've got the new barn, we've got more improvements coming to the barn, panels are coming. So we're working hard to make a difference. And I wish we could focus on that instead of the rental rates are too high. And to answer your question, depending on the building you rent, they went from $50 to $150 more, depending on the building you rent. When you rent them all, different animal. But just to show you, that's not that significant.
Thank you. My name's Ellen Luce, and I live on Pleasant, right here. A couple of things. One, and I know you've heard this before, a concern about disability access. The openings, both of them are troublesome for access. The hill, of course, from the main parking lot is way too steep. So that's an issue I'd like you to respond to. And then two, probably simple, quick questions. Why did you block off the view from Pleasant Avenue through the fence? We loved seeing the animals, and now is that permanent or temporary? And the other one is, what happened to fireworks? Just curious.
Okay, so let's take the easier one first. So we put that up because we have other neighbors on Pleasant Street who said they didn't like looking in at our ugly fairgrounds. So again, we made a decision. We thought it would be better served for everybody. Had I known that you had that feeling, I would have asked you, so shame on me. But that's right. So that's why that's up there. So that's something that, in answer to that again, if you want them removed, or we talk to the neighbors here soon, and they say, hey, can we open that up or open up an area? I'm all in. I was just trying to, because we used to have a construction company in this parking lot, which we no longer have, and one of the young ladies on the backside, I would get, probably 3 or 4 emails a week, and she couldn't stand looking at all that stuff. So anyway, we budgeted, and lo and behold, way too many months later, we have fabric on the fence. So maintenance was doing a great job, figured that was the solution, so thank you for that comment. Now I've lost myself in the other ones. You were talking fireworks. Okay, so the fireworks have always happened here at the fairgrounds. What's changed is the chamber thought the cost of renting the facility was too much for them. They were here last year, but they thought this year that was too much. So they made a decision to move up here, top of the railroad tracks there, and that's fine. And then I met with the city manager, Sean Raby, terrific guy. I think he's the leader we've all been waiting for. And we sat around, discussed right before Cesar Chavez Day. We really want to figure out how to make this event, all of us. How do we share the burden? So at that time, it was decided that the cost of fireworks was about $15,000. $13,000 for the pyrotechnic show, and about $2,000 for the fire inspection, give or take. So we said, okay, we'll all pitch in $5,000. Still was a lot. The city was just starting to realize there was an error in the budget prior to poor Sean, and they're trying desperately to fix that, and I think they're going to be fine. They'll work that out. But we started thinking, well, what can we do to help that? The chamber was worried about that extra money, and so we're kicking it around. Lo and behold, Father's Day weekend, I get a phone call from a donor who says, hey, can we donate for all the fireworks? And and we're like, yeah, that sounds wonderful, right? So I thought everyone would be excited about that news, but that seemed to get lost in the shuffle. More concerned about why are we moving? Well, we're not moving. The fireworks were always going to be planned here in the horse arena because it's a safety concern. We've been working diligently with the city, and the city's been kind enough to participate and help us. They'll help us with the crowd control. And anyway, we thought it was going to be a tri-hosted event. Turned out not so much. So we have a separate event going on there and an event here. But we sat as a staff and we said, okay, what do we do do we just shut down? And then, of course, the answer from the young, intelligent staffers is, well, if you do that, everybody's used to coming to the fairgrounds and they're going to hate you more because they're going to be able to get in. The gate's going to be locked and there's no one, and the fireworks are going on and it's closed for business. So we're like, okay, that doesn't work either. So anyway, the end of the story, I don't know if it's a moral or if it's just trying to do the right thing at the wrong time. It's probably more accurate. This will be open for business. Our hope is that everybody partakes all over. The owner of Fast Fridays was kind enough to bring back his motorcycle exhibition, I should say. So there'll be some free events going on there. So our hope is that we're going to have this wonderful 4th of July going. And the Auburn Journal just wrote a great piece on all the things to do in Auburn, which is great. So we should be celebrating this. Instead, it seems to be a point of contention. And if you have the answer to that, I'd love to hear it. We're doing our best, but apparently it's not enough.
Disability access.
And the disability access, thank you, sir. That is a huge one. We've been neglecting that forever. But not that this makes you feel any better, but I want to tell you the reality. So what the state has decided, and I agree, this is a great short-term solution, but it's not the long-term solution. The short-term solution is any improvement we make, we should be adding ADA access. So right, the pathway, making sure there's a couple spaces, whatever we can make work as we make improvements, because then you can put the money into that project. Because when you take it out of a project, they don't even know how much it's gonna cost. We've had estimates as high as 10 billion through the network, which you and I both know the state of California is not gonna give 10 billion. When these facilities were put up and built, nobody thought about that, and that's unfortunate because we need to now. So our plan is, and we're working on it for next year, this is the first phase, we've got it, and this is what the state likes to do. We're gonna spend some money before we invest it into something. Be nice just to invest it into it, but we have to do a study which we'll commission, which will show what we can do for these buildings, what we can do for parking access, what we can do here. We've looked at, as you come down that hill, it's terrible, but if you look to the right, as you first come in, it's still relatively flat. So maybe we can do some type of a nature trail where we'll go behind the fire building, work our way up like a kind of a serpentine. It's not perfect, but it may get us, because the incline has changed too. What used to be considered handicap is now much tougher. So thank you for that. And I think people like you need to speak up more, because it's your voice that we don't really get to talk about until it's an issue, and then what do we do? But I will make you this promise, because we've done this already. If you're having issues or you want to get here, Lions does a great job at Fair. They, I think it's the 49er Lions. They bring a cart here and they take people up and down the hill, which is helpful. And we also have a service where if you call us or tell us in advance, we'll make arrangements to get you too. So obviously we can't help everybody that way because that's not a long-term solution, but we will work with you. And thank you for sharing that, because that's going to be the largest single investment the state's going to have to make. And I think they should, because on the front end, you can't say we have to have more access, and then on the back end, as a landlord, not provide the funds to make it more accessible. So I think that story's gonna have a good answer and a good solution. I just hope it's fast enough.
Just add one last thing. We have a local organization, Placer Independent Resource Services, that if you want information on accessibility from people that need it, you might want to work with them. Tink Miller is the executive director there. You may know her, you may have heard from her. I think you heard from her. We were concerned when everything closed and suddenly there was no access. So anyway, good luck to you. I'm glad you're working.
Yeah, we are, and that's a weak answer, but that's the true answer.
So there was a Comic-Con about 2 years ago. I kind of liked that. Do you know when that will ever come back? And what happened to that one too?
I'll let Aaron answer that.
So you're referring to the Comic-Con at the fair?
I missed it.
At the fair?
Yeah, here.
Okay, so this year it'll actually be replaced by the Auburn Trading Card Show. And they have a couple events here throughout the year now. We've booked a couple events. So the Trading Card Show, they focus on trading cards. So it goes anything from sports to Pokemon. This November, he's actually going to have 2 buildings, one for sports card trading and things like that, and then the other one's going to be Pokemon anime-based, more like Comic-Con type things. A lot of our Comic-Con vendors from the Tahoe building also will be returning as commercial vendors throughout the fairgrounds. So you will be able to find different booths from the Comic-Con building this year featured all around the fair.
So dress up as Comic-Con characters?
Absolutely. You can even reach out to me. We might be able to work something out where we have you walking around as a character. So yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you about that.
What is your character, out of curiosity? Okay, you're hired. If you're interested, we'd love to have you.
All right, and just for the sake of time, we're going to try to speed up a little bit. We have a lot of questions, so if you have a question, just try to ask it all at once so we can give everyone a chance to talk. Next I have over here, and then I'll go make my way on that side.
Thank you. I'm Rachel Harris. I'm the mayor of Auburn, and I wanted to first say thank you to Don, because we've been working with you over the last several months to try to get more communication with the community, and we appreciate you having these events where these questions can get asked. It's hard to do everything over social media. So thank you for that. I think we get a lot of frustration because people think that the fairgrounds is owned by the city and it's actually owned by the state. So we get a lot of comments. So we try to field those as best we can. But since we don't have jurisdiction over the fairgrounds, it's a little challenging for us. But we also do represent the community around the fairgrounds. And we get a lot of feedback as we understand your need for additional revenue. But we also know a lot of people moved here to have a community fairgrounds nearby and not to have a concert venue nearby. And so that the level of noise has definitely gone up as you've been shifting away from local community events and towards more regional events and concerts and louder events. So I feel like it's kind of moving out of balance. It used to be pretty balanced, the loud events versus the more community-based events. What are you doing to bring back that balance? I know you've done a lot, you've said a lot of, well, we agree to disagree and we hope they come back at some point, but what are you doing to bring back those people that you've lost? And forming those connections, mending those fences.
Well, I think I talked about them, right, Mandarin, so I'm not sure what you're asking of me as far as, because the events that we cherish, like okay now? Yeah. So we really only lost the 4 that I had mentioned. As far as bringing more community events, that really comes down to more community events. People that want to do events here. So the way I'm searching for them is trying to create things like I mentioned about the job fair. I'm also reaching out to CAL FIRE to see if they want to do training sessions here. Now those aren't the kind of events. Well, they are local. CAL FIRE, if we're in a fire, you'd be glad CAL FIRE comes here. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah, well, the local events have to be local. We used to have a pepper festival. He went out of business. So all we can do is try to get people to do events, and we're encouraging that. I'm always looking for new events and things to do here. I mentioned we have 3 now as a Fairgrounds. We used to only have 1. We'll probably be adding another one next year. So we're gonna have 4 of our own events. So community events. So all I can say is that if you have an idea, or there are people out there that you've come across, Rachel, that says, hey, I would like to look at the Fairgrounds, love to have you. Well, I don't like to think of it as broken. I know that's a term that's easy for us to use. I like to look at it as maybe some trust is gone, maybe I've disappointed, maybe I've frustrated people. I hate the word broken because broken means, how do you put it back together again? So I'd like to think it's even fractured would be a better word. But my dad used to always say that you drop a vase on the ground, you put it back together again, it's still not the same vase because you see all the cracks after you put it back together again. The difference is it's stronger because now it's glued, right? So that's what we have to do. We have to, at this end too, I'm accepting that responsibility, but also out there, we need to start looking at solutions, not personalities. It's gotten way too personal in my opinion, just my humble opinion. So if we can get back to, like this gentleman said, remember our values, our goals, what we're doing here, what we're trying to do. I'm all for more community events, and any community events we can find, we're chasing. I call people at Cal Expo and say, come here, we've got grass, we've got a better community. You can do your little bottle show here. We have a bottle show that used to be in Roseville at the ground. So we're bringing them. This event we just talked about with the Maidu and Milwaukee Indians was wonderful. That's a community-based event. I would venture nobody heard any noise or any complaints or anything over the weekend. We also, the same day that was going on, we had our weigh-in, which was wonderful. We had all 4-H here, all the kids here. So it's incumbent upon all of us to look deep within and say, what are those events? For example, the city, maybe you have a training course or a 1-day 4-hour program or something where you want to do something here. So there's a lot of ways to bring community events. And as far as at our end, yes, we're always chasing. But there's a lot of events I don't know anything about. And I also think we can tag team better or partner better because there's events where you need help from us just because of its proximity, right? Like parking lot or parking spaces. Those are things we need to talk about and get together on too, because that's a way of not only giving back to the community, but supporting the community event. I think you'd agree with that. So I'm open to suggestions, open for ideas, and we'll work very hard to find them.
Okay, I have one over here, and then in the back end, okay, perfect. So here to go.
Thank you, Don. Alice Dowden Calvio, also on the Auburn City Council. I wanted just to show appreciation for Rachel's comments and also acknowledge that we have a third council member here, Michelle Sierra Salmons. So we, the City Council, do hear your concerns. We've had discussions, as our mayor has indicated, with you. We appreciate that. We look forward to having those continued 3x3 meetings where we can discuss issues of mutual concern. One thing we've talked about, and this should not be a surprise to you at all because we've talked about it several times, is just that transparency piece. And you had talked about your fee setting process where the CEO proposes the fees, the finance committee reviews them, makes a recommendation to the full board, then the full board adopts the fees. So what I'm wondering is, there's kind of a two-pronged question. first of all, your budget process. Your budget is a public document, is that correct?
That's correct.
So when you go through your budget adoption process, do you do that in one meeting, 2 meetings, and when do you typically do that?
So the budget process, I actually start right after fair, which will be in September. We try to get it to the board in October for the first review, which the whole budget's put in the board packet and on our website. So that's where you first would get an idea what's proposed. And then if the board has discussions or sends certain things back, we have to have it by the end of the year at the latest, because we have a stop that we have to fill out by April 30th, I think it is, that the state demands. So the budget has to be done. We go by a calendar year here, but the state goes by the fiscal year. So for us, it would be October, you start looking for it. It's got everything you want to know in there. You can dissect it all you want. And at the board meeting in October is when those discussions will happen. But there'll also be a finance committee meeting before the October board meeting to get that first review of the budget. Last year, it took 4 turns of the budget before we got it, but we got it at the end of December.
So typically, you're coming to the board with some kind of a proposal in October. And I think it's important then for folks to put that on their calendar so that they can see and participate in that process. Your budget is a public document, and included in that budget will be your fees, correct? Do you have a schedule of fees that's in the budget, or is that somewhere else?
So that will be, it's by building, by overall budget. So the fees we have in the office, and we also have on the website under rental facility fees.
But the fees are not in your budget?
They are already been approved for this coming year because they approved it at the last budget. So the ones you'll be interested in would be 2026 rates, which would be voted on in October through December of 25.
But when you show your budget and you show comparison years, you're going to show your revenue for each year.
Correct.
And you're going to show your revenue by fees that are from events and things of that nature. I haven't looked at your budget.
Yeah, no, it's broken up by buildings, which would be the fees. So for example, if there's 50 rentals of the Maureen Dovis building, you'd have to say 50 times whatever the rental rate is how I got that number. But it won't break out the rental rate. It'll just show you how many rentals and how the revenue stream is. But the actual rental rates are on a facility rental sheet.
I'm sorry, this is such a dialogue, but I also want, is the state at all responsible for reviewing or approving or auditing your budget?
Yeah, so the budget gets approved by the state, that's called the stop, so that'll get approved in April. So the board approves it in December, and it gets adopted by the state in April. But we also do 2 reviews and an audit, so every year, like, matter of fact, this year we have our formal week-long audit of our books. That's done by an independent company.
And then the last question is, and again, this shouldn't be a surprise, when you're developing your fees, having worked for a number of years in the state myself and also local government, what kind of public process do you have? For example, the city of Auburn is in the process of updating its building and planning fees. We had a public hearing where we talked about that, it's noticed, individuals have the opportunity to come and speak to us, and then they're adopted. Do you have that kind of process, and if not, will you consider that? I think that what people are hearing is that there's a concern in how you develop your fees. I recognize that you need to be self-sustaining from a fiscal perspective, so that you need to raise sufficient revenue to make the improvements that you want. But what I think that folks are asking for as a public entity, I know you're only receiving $45,000 from the state, but there are other benefits as well. There's no tax and things of that nature. You are kind of in a quasi role. But having that opportunity to participate in that and understanding, more importantly, what science, what data, what numbers, how are you formulating? Do you have a CIP, a capital improvement program, whereby you've estimated this building's going to cost $1 million to repair? These are all the things that we need to do for ADA access. This is what we have to raise. This is why we're raising the fees. Just having that opportunity to explain and be as transparent as possible, I think, would go a long way for people to understand. And right now, it just kind of seems like it's happening in a box. That may not be your intent, but it just really appears that way. And I just really urge you to involve the public and let them have that opportunity to participate. Thank you so much, Don. Again, I appreciate this.
Those capital projects are in the budget as well, so things like you were talking about earlier, things like that, lights for McCann Stadium. So that's all part of the budgetary process as well.
All right, I had a question back here.
Good morning. I really appreciate Rachel's question because I think it gets to the heart of the community's concerns. When you look at the events that have left Auburn and the questions that we've asked, what I'm hearing you say is a lot of general statements about not being able to negotiate with them. When we get specific, it's really about all of the responsibility that's on the event. And what I'm hoping to hear from you, assuming that we all want what's best for the community of Auburn, I'm looking for something actionable that the Fairgrounds can take responsibility for. What can you do and what do you intend to do to try to bring those events back that are so integral to our community, knowing how important that is to the people who live here?
Thank you. So there's many things we're doing. One of the things is making ourselves available, like today, and then we'll do it again in the very near future. We're going to mixers. We're going to where we're invited to speak, we speak. We've expanded our chambers throughout Placer County so that we can get our message to everybody. So we're trying to action on all things we can action on. I encourage, and I can't say this enough, I've always had an open door policy. When you have questions of detail, rather than go through them all tonight or today, please come see me, make an appointment. All the things that we're talking about is all available. Easy to give you, easy for you to ask questions based on. And I think that'll help. And I think part of it too is as we came out of COVID, we kind of were doing our own thing. And we come out of COVID and now we're really busy and everybody's focused on everything everybody's doing, which I think is great. So us telling you the story better and giving you more information, that's on us. We'll continue to work on that. But I encourage you as well, come see us, visit with us, get the story, and then compare it to whatever it is you're hearing. Because that's part of our narrative we're dealing with right now too, is that there's pieces of information, but not all the information. Then it comes back as a, well, we don't care. We certainly care. And we're listening and we're gonna keep working at it. So our biggest action thing is make yourself available, visit the different events that we can, make yourself more involved in things like parades, things like that, so you actually see us. Having our board members, now that we have 6, continue to do what they do best, which is ambassadors, go out, talk to people, and generally just try to be more proactive as opposed to reactive. I know that's general, but that's most of it.
All right, I got a question on this side.
I have 2 questions. First, I appreciate the city council members being here. Thank you. It shows that it's important to you, this issue. How many of your board members are here today, Don?
I didn't look, oh, right there, hey, I wasn't looking.
Okay, great, because I can only see the back of head, so I appreciate that. So we have one of our board members here, and I appreciate them being here as well. Can you please elaborate as to why community members are being blocked from your public Facebook page for the Gold Country Fairgrounds?
Yes, our IT person.
I also have, our IT
We have someone
person
that can answer that for you.
So our CDFA policy, which we abide by, we also hold our public to those standards as well, because it does then become a part of our page. The policy does include all of our social media. Happy to share that policy with anyone willing to look at it. But basically, I can personally speak to the fact that there are only 2 individuals that have been blocked by our Facebook. And those comments that they have been made, I can show you our block page, I'd be happy to. I think that there's maybe a misconception of what blocked means, but there are only 2 members blocked, and those people are blocked for obscenities, profanity, threatening things, racial things, things of those manners, and they're all outlined in our policy what is not acceptable for our page. I'd be happy to share that with you. But we keep ourselves to that standard as well as the people who have seen on our page.
So I'm blocked, and I am not one of those 2.
I'd be happy to take a look at it with you because that's not the case on our end.
And I informed Dawn on April 30th that there was a public post that actually blocked all community members from commenting. And that is against the law, and nothing was changed. It's very disheartening that a public entity would not allow individuals to comment on their public Facebook page. And like I said, it is against the law, and it has not been corrected.
And I will follow up with that one as well. What it is, it's not necessarily blocking, I hear you. It is frustrating, however, it is, there's an option on Facebook called limit comments. Just when it's like really blowing up, we could just limit it and I think it's like the people who we follow, or you don't really follow people, is the problem. So no, you're not blocked. Like we said, we'd be happy to sit down with you and show that. Unfortunately, it does fall under the CDMA policy, so we do hold ourselves to that standard, but that's about the extent we can speak to that.
If you can't bring the page up, you're blocked. Correct. Can you bring the page up?
I can't comment on specific posts.
You can't bring the page up.
That's against the law. It is against our policy to have the comments that we've had on there. My comment.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and shut down the event.
It's a template the state puts out, so it's a GL, so each item has its own line item. So for example, I don't want to, let's say maintenance. Let's say I budget $30,000 for buildings and grounds for maintenance. That'll be on there, but it won't be broken down by this is one item, this is another. The state doesn't require that because you can imagine how much paper it would be. But that's how we do that. So we account for our costs through revenue and expenditures. And you can see them, there's detail, but there's not going to be, for example, power, I think it's lights, power, and water. They're under their own line item. So that's 3 big entities, right? So when you see the total for that, there's some assumptions you'll have to make because you won't have the exact cost. But that's how we do our budgeting. It's about an 18 to 19 page document, so it's pretty detailed, give you most of what you want to know. So that's the budgetary process. And I think you had another question. So everything on there will show what goes in and what goes out, but it won't be maybe as finite as you're hoping for, but it does have all the costs. So there'll be, at the end of the day, there'll be total cost of expenditures, total cost of revenue, and then of course, what the actual profit for the year is that we are forecasting. That we can do a better job of that by sharing these events as they come in, what the expectations are, and what we can honestly expect to control. I will tell you one thing that is helpful. We have a new captain of CHP joining us July 1st, which is today. And we are going to, for the first time since I've been here, actually have CHP on property for these certain events. So that'll give us the enforcement arm. So like you say, if someone's getting too loud, or you didn't say that, but someone earlier said, if someone's too loud or they're violating the policies that we have in place, we now will have someone on site to help us with that, which I think will also answer some of the city's concerns, because they won't get the call. And in fairness to the city, you know, APD gets the call because nobody knows, or not nobody, but some people don't realize this is state property. And so off comes APD, and that's a cost to the city, which they shouldn't have to incur. So we're improving our communications that way, which I think will help. We're also changing the event requirements as far as what we fill out for CHP. We also have more information being shared with the City of Auburn, CHP, and our team. So we're trying to get at all those things. But I do appreciate, and I want to thank you for what you said. You recognize that one event may not be your cup of tea, but the other one is. That's kind of how we have to look at it, is that if we're all only looking for what we want, we're then being unfair to the rest of our community who may like that. And so who are we to judge what's good or bad, as long as it's safe, doesn't encroach on the neighbors, and it's in the best interest of the public. And I think those are things we will look at tighter and tighter, and we'll do the best we can.
I have one question up here front. I'm coming around. Please give us some time.
Thank you for having this meeting. I appreciate it. It's my first one. I live over off Pinecrest Avenue, so I've lived there for 30 years. So the Fast Fridays I can sleep through. Train I can sleep through. The Mexican rodeo, oh my God, that was loud. Holy moly, that was over the top. And I've noticed this last year, from over the 30 years, the volume has gone up. So I'm really happy to hear that you're gonna do something about that. My concern right now is I've heard, and I don't know if it's true, you know how that goes, that all the vendors for the 4th of July are gonna be at Railhead Park. Is that true?
So it's not true. We have, where's Aaron? How many do we have?
I think I currently have about 15 vendors signed up, and then we also have 4-H will be doing face painting. We have a couple other things going on that aren't necessarily vendors, but they're involved in the event.
So there'll be vendors there and there'll be vendors here.
So there will be vendors at Railhead Park?
That's my understanding, correct.
Okay, is there any way you guys can cut them a deal and bring them back here? And my concern is Railhead Park, and I'm sure most of you know, gets packed on 4th of July with all families sitting out there. And the traffic is unreal. I've seen people almost get ran over, on and on and on. What is the Fairgrounds doing to try to bring those guys back over here
Okay.
so we're not so congested?
I'm gonna wade into this one and I'm probably gonna regret it, but
Sorry.
I'm gonna give you the.
I don't know.
No, your question's wonderful, but the answers may not be as wonderful as what you're asking me, and it's how you understand that is important to me, because I'm going to tell you what's really, I believe, the issue here. We lost a person in our community, he's done a lot of great things for our community, and I'm not going to try to play accolades up here because I didn't know her as well as some of you did, but we lost the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce here very tragically, and it's very unfortunate, and her poor family's going to have to pick up those pieces as well as all her friends and acquaintances. So that's a tough thing right there. I went in to see the president of the chamber that Wednesday after the unfortunate passing of Jackie Weston. And Natalie Litchfield was there, and Gary Gilligan was there, who's the president, and Natalie's a wonderful person, Gary's a great guy, and anyway, president and board member. And I said, look guys, I don't know what you want to do because this is a difficult time right now. They were trying to get in the computer, they were trying to figure out what was going on. I said, look, we got the fireworks taken care of, I've paid them, we've got the property ready to go, they were gonna go, and they're still gonna happen, the fireworks here at the horse arena. I said, why don't you just consider the possibility as a healing mechanism? How about you just bring whatever vendors you have? I don't want any money for that, just bring them over here, let's combine the events. I said, you can take over the MC role, maybe a role of, ask for a minute of silence, special, whatever it is the chamber wanted to do. I made that effort. And when I made that effort, I was rebuked and I was told I was doing it because I wanted to steal the event. I didn't want to steal the event. I wanted to do just what you said. I wanted to offer a bridge, a chance for our community to heal, because an individual in this community dug deep for $15,000, not for the fairgrounds, not for the chamber, and not for the city of Auburn, but for the community of Auburn. And when I read posts like Unity in the Community, and I'm thinking here we had an opportunity to do something very special, and as we were talking about earlier, why is it broken? Well, here was a chance to put some glue back together on that bridge. It's not happening, and I can't fix that. And I know that's a weak answer for some people, and other people are thinking, yeah, that's because they don't like you, whatever the reason may be. But the fact of the matter is I did that, and I tried very hard. I didn't do it because I'm a special person. I did it because it was the right thing to do. So as it is, we're still going to encourage people to go back and forth, and we hope they all have a wonderful time. But you're absolutely right. The infrastructure here is way better set up for what's about to happen on the 4th of July. And that's why we're still open, is because our fear was somebody was going to start piling in here anyway. So that's why we have an event. We're not competing. We're keeping the fairgrounds open so that we can have the fireworks. They're not competing. It was a choice they made. I just wish we could have somehow got together and made it easy.
Was that approved by the city for the vendors to go over to Railhead Park?
I don't have that answer. Maybe they can.
City's not involved.
City's not involved. There you go.
Are they gonna have security? Does anybody know?
Railhead, yes.
All right, I've got a question back here.
So, thank you for bringing about the ADA issue in the fairgrounds, because for me it's real. And what I'm gonna request is please focus first on your front entrance. It puts wheelchairs out into the street. If I'm coming down High Street, I have to go into the street to get past your driveway because there's no ramps. And you could easily change that by bringing it in about 10, 20 feet, setting a crosswalk across, having a sidewalk go so there's a continuous sidewalk. The city of Auburn has done a great job of going in and changing those sidewalks in the last year and a half, which is great. But this fairgrounds, that's a big issue, putting wheelchairs in the middle of the street. The second thing I have to ask you about is your storm drains here. Your storm drains, when you have events, people use them for dumping sewage into that. And when I say sewage, I'm talking about drinks and things that are not just water. So that water goes down through the school park reserve. So it also then combines in with the Auburn Ravine. So this fairgrounds generates a significant amount of pollution in the water streams because of the storm drains are not tied in to the sewer, where, for instance, when you have the Old Country Fair, they're washing vehicles out next to the storm drain that has manure. That water goes through the school park.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean.
So I'm gonna ask that you
Because
please
I can
focus
see about
on that
cutting
in
your
the
part out
future
if you would like
and
that.
try and fix that problem.
I'm just saying in
because
general.
that is a
Well,
problem.
it's a public event.
Thank you.
It's a public meeting, so.
It's my understanding from, especially some of these big events that are happening at the fairgrounds, that while the rental fees the increases are approved by the board, the extra fees for parking, for loading in, for loading out, all those extra fees that those are big, huge events who take over the fairgrounds have to pay, have increased dramatically. And that while the rent may be not so bad for some of these events, the fees have put everything over the top. Can you address that, please? Because it's my understanding those fees are not approved by the board, the increases, although they may be buried in a budget somewhere. Thank you.
Yes. Do you mean like day before, day after kind of thing?
Yes, and
Okay.
also the parking for vendors and all that stuff. All the extra fees that are not rent.
Gotcha, clarification.
All right, so first of all, there's no extra for loading in, loading out, things like that. Where the extras are and where they seem exorbitant is, we used to rent our chairs for $1 a chair. We over and above the chairs you get in the building. I believe they're $5 a chair, am I right? Okay. But before you go, ooh, that's terrible. We're not in the chair rental business, so you get enough tables and chairs for the building you rent. When you're looking for extras, it takes us to load 100 chairs from one building to another building. It's about a 4-hour labor of love. So at $1 a chair, we're not interested. We've made arrangements with our friends locally, Pistol Pete's. I think he's $3 a chair. I don't want to color and where they're from, and there's also decorations out of Roseville. So those went up. But if you need 50 more chairs, then you're looking at 4 times 50 is, you do the math on that.
I really wasn't talking about.
I know, I'm trying to answer, you said all of them, so I'm gonna give you a list of the ones that you might be referring to if I may finish. Tables have gone up, I think from, help me out here, 5 to 10?
But the thing is that it includes the transportation and the setup and breakdown of them.
Right.
When you rent our tables, it comes set up in the facility, exactly how you map it out and give it to me. I then give it to maintenance and they set it up footprint for how you put it on the layout.
So we also have power dollies, which are new. We didn't charge for them before. We charge for them because they cost us about $1,000 to build. And when we give them out, it's for people who need more power than they can on the site they're at. So it allows us to give them adapting to more power. And we've been repairing them at a tremendous rate because, again, if there's no value, there's no value. So we have to deal with that. Again, so they weren't charged before. I think they're $150 for the event. They're not per day, or are they? I don't. Yep, come to the office. I'm happy to show you all this stuff. The other thing that I can think of is you're doing forklift after hours or not as part of your contract. There's a charge for labor for that. Basically, it's things that are part of extra value over and above your rental, and they're only charged if you need those extra things. If you're doing your standard rental, they're not in there. As far as, yes, did you have questions? Okay. And then as far as setup and dismantle, They did go up. We used to charge $300, I think it was, per building. And what happened is that we get rented on as a setup day on the Friday, the event would be Saturday, and then they'd keep it on Sunday. And so we had the ability to only rent once a weekend. Through the team and through extra work, we turn those buildings in the middle of the night now. The reason we do that is because we can add more events, because there's only so many weekends in a year, and the only way you can get more events is if you have more events on those weekends. So we've turned it over, and that was approved by the board, and the actual recommendation for those prices was made by 2 board members, not even by me, but they were made by those board members, and it's 50% of the cost of the rental of the building. And the reason is, if you really need it to decorate and set up, that's, I think, fair. And if you really need it to tear down tear down, I think that's fair as well. We've had as many as 7 events on a weekend, because we've turned them over. On a Friday night, we were able to set up for a Saturday, and Saturday we were able to set up for a Sunday. So you gotta understand, we're doing a better job. And if people wanna do it for setup or dismantle, they're welcome to it, but those are the rates that went up.
Miss Sonia?
I'm Steph Chapman, and I've got a question, and it might be for you, Miss Sonia. So on your website, there are committee meetings that are posted. I believe that's part of your Vacuum Keying Act, all that good stuff. Will the minutes to those meetings also be posted as well?
So you know too, my position at the Fairgrounds is to help kind of navigate what that all means and get the online stuff posted and the board meetings ready and whatnot. So with recent Attorney General guidance and compliance, what they require from us as a state entity is that our public meetings with 2 or more board directors have to be published in an agenda 10 days prior. And so we've known that for board meetings, but now it's been a little bit more enforced and a little bit more compliance, so that trickles down to our community meetings as well. I have not gotten any guidance about minutes yet. As soon as I do, we will publish that. What I know right now is just the agendas are supposed to be up. So because committee meetings aren't really they don't approve minutes and this and that and the other, the minutes don't go up. If I get compliance or if I get direction to do so, I will do so. As of right now, I do not.
But they are shared in summary in the board meeting packet when they do the committee review.
Yes, the board, each committee has to have some time to speak at the board meeting under the committee assignments. Well, they will report what they met on and what they discussed at each committee meeting. So it's summarized, yes, it'll be in the board packet. At its own minutes, I don't have guidance on that yet, but it will be in the board packet, correct. Thank you for that.
Just a couple questions. Number one, I have heard during the weekends, etc., that the Fairgrounds is no longer being referred to as the Gold Country Fairgrounds, which it has been for years and years. It is now being called an event center. Can you tell me, for one of my questions, why that is? Why are we not referring it to as the Gold Country Fairgrounds?
So we are referring to it as the Gold Country Fairgrounds and Event Center. So if someone's giving you one or the other, they're just choosing their way of reporting. But it is the Gold Country Fairgrounds and Event Center.
Okay, my second question is, it was my understanding that the prior board that you had was doing a very adequate job, and a number of the members were let go or somehow no longer are members. Do you have any input as to who stays on the board as far as determining whether someone stays or goes, or how is that determined?
So the governor's office, through their appointments office, appoints board members or makes recommendations, whatever direction they may go. I don't have any say-so in terms of who. All I can do is say, if you'd like to apply for the positions, I said earlier, there's 3 open. I can direct you to a link where you can apply. But at the end of the day, it's the governor's office through their appointments office. So does the governor actually personally do it? I don't know. I'm sure he has staff for that. But it's through his office, and there is an appointments person. I think her name is Michelle. And all that's on the website. And she would be the one who would notify of any board changes.
Is it any coincidence that all the board members that are no longer on the board at one point disagreed with you or challenged you?
Oh, good question.
I'm not sure, since I work for them, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't have the input in it, so if you want to call it coincidence, that's your choice of words. I see it as just that when we are involved in our meetings and things, the board gets to make decisions and say things just like the CEO does things. And if there was any reason for board members no longer to be there, that's a decision made at the state level. It has nothing to do with the CEO. I know the optics look that way, but I can assure you that the organizational chart is not set up that way, and nor should it be, because the fiduciary and policy requirements are on the board. And if the CEO was dictating that, then that makes it difficult for the CEO to do their job in, I think, an honest way. So I think the system works.
Hello, my name's Liza. I am a club leader in Oprah 4-H, which is the biggest club in Auburn. We have about 125 kids. I come to the fairgrounds quite a bit for different events, and we always are trying to get our kids shoved into events to volunteer. So I'm speaking to these guys all the time. One thing I thought I would just come in here, and I learned a lot, because I've learned that people have different opinions, right? Some people like to see the animals, some people want a fence, some people like the music, some people don't. And I just want to kind of recognize that as a community, that we all have different opinions, and I appreciate the fairgrounds letting us voice those. One thing that has kind of been my thorn as a community member in those different opinions is, what is the fair doing to address the junior livestock auction and kind of the negativity around the fairgrounds, and trying to make sure that those kids don't suffer from this negative publicity?
Do you want me to handle that, or would you like to President JLA?
Either way, you can piggyback off what I have to say as well. Thank you, Liza, for that question. That is a pressing question at the moment. So you know too, on top of doing all the other things that I do, I also oversee the livestock department. And I have heard that concern. And you know, I don't want to be nervous that there won't be buyers, because I know that those who say they support the kids will come and support the kids in any capacity. And I appreciate them more than they know, because I was once a kid. I showed cattle at this fair for 10 years. So this is my home fair, and it holds a very special place in my heart. And so does that whole program. But we discussed this the other night as well. And what are we going to do to make sure that the buyers get there? First and foremost, we understand there's one or two upset people, and it's not necessarily towards the livestock department, just upset of the negative narrative that we have going on here. And so we are making an effort to reach out. We do a couple calls a day and say, when can we meet? Let's sit down. Let's talk this through. And like we're doing today. And we hope some of them came. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. But we're going to continue to reach out. We will have our livestock clerks who will also be helping to make sure that we're knocking on businesses' doors and saying, hey, this is what's going on and this is what we're doing. Please come support the 4-H and the FFA kids. And so we're continuously making that effort. We'll send postcards out, we'll send mail out, we'll send all kinds of stuff to just make sure people are informed that we do have this. And like you said, the kids, they're not to suffer from what is happening here. And we hope too that in this public forum, and then when we continue to keep doing that, we don't know if we're doing them biannually or monthly or weekly, we don't know yet. This is the first one ourselves, so we don't know what to expect, but we're going to continue making that effort to really engage those people, make sure that they understand that the kids don't have to suffer on our behalf, And so I don't know how else to answer that, but we're certainly trying, and we're going to continue to advocate for those youth in agriculture. And, I'm doing my best too to make sure we're hitting all of our spots and that those kids are out and about too, because the kids do have to put a little bit of effort in, make sure they get their buyer's letters ready and get out in uniform and introduce themselves to those businesses. So that certainly counts too.
And to answer further, so thank you, Sonia. I've personally been making phone calls, I'm visiting people, having luncheons scheduled. We're going to find ways to replace that revenue, whatever that looks like, because our kids work hard. You were here at the weigh-in on Saturday. We got here bright and early and bushy-tailed, as they say. I probably saw more youth at that weigh-in than I've seen since I've been here since 2017. Would you agree with that assessment? So the kids are engaged, the kids want to do the right thing. So us as parents, it's incumbent upon us to do the right thing. I said this at the other event, which Sonia kind of insinuated. I'm going to give it straight out. If you really love your kids and you really love the program and you really care about the ag community, then it doesn't matter what narrative you're chasing here. It should be your heart. And if your heart says, I love ag and I love the youth and I love the kids and I want to support, then your place to be at the Gold Country Fairgrounds. And if you want to spend money, spend money. If you don't want to spend money, that's okay too. But that's where you should be. We can't teach our youth to be the future leaders of America, and then when we have the opportunity to lead, we don't accept it. So that's, and I'm going to say it again because I can't say it any stronger, shame on them. Because if Don Alis is the reason you're not at that Gold Country Fair to buy a project from some kid who spent months trying to make this happen because their future depends on your ability to come and give some money if you're kind enough to do so, so gracious to do so, then that's on you. And that's something you got to rise every day and sleep with to think about, because this fairgrounds, that auction is bigger than anybody who ever stands here, he or she, anybody who ever's president of that auction, whoever's a volunteer over there. If we truly believe in our kids, and I do, and I think they're the future of us all, and I think if we listen to our kids, we'd probably solve most of our problems, because they're very bright and they tell you just exactly how it is. So as far as those buyers who may or may not show, I hope they change their mind. But for you kids and parents of kids who work very hard, you can rest assured that everybody within the team here is doing everything they can to find replacement revenue opportunities. And if I have to spend every day between now and fair to do that, I'm going to do that. And just so you know, the results have been great. So we had a couple of people at the weigh-in who now want to be a part of our fairground. So that was exciting. And they're going to spend, and they've already committed to we're having a new thing at the Demo Derby. I'm going to make that announcement too. Yes, Alonda Riley, there is a Demo Derby. So those of you who are friends with Alonda Riley, we are having a Demo Derby. The good news is we've added a little wrinkle. It's called the Celebrity Demo Derby. So we have 3 people from our community. I know it's not me. I know you'd love to get in the car and hurt me, but I'm not going to be in the car. We have 3 kind sponsors. There's going to be 3 kind sponsors in those cars, and that's going to be fun. But the point I make is that this new group, that these 2 new who come to our weigh-in over the weekend, they've already committed to 2 cars for next year's Demo Derby. So there you go, Alonda. Not only do we have a Demo Derby this year, we're going to have a Demo Derby next year. And the only reason we delayed in giving that information out there is because we've been talking about the cost of doing business, and I totally understand that. My Demo Derby cost, I say mine because I'm the one who has to write the check, but it's our Demo Derby cost is a more appropriate word, went from $18,000 to $42,000. Now bear in mind, we make $20,000 on the Demo Derby if we're lucky, and that's okay. It's a community event. It's good for the community. We've been spending months trying to figure it out. We were able to do some things internally that brought that down to somewhere north of 35. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to get it down close to 30. But these are the kind of things we're trying to do to keep the community traditions alive. I don't say that. I don't go out there and talk about that much. But trust me, I see the posts. Now the Demo Derby's gone. It's not gone. But that's how we're going to get those kids more money, is we're going to bring in people who are not necessarily here that often, but are engaged. They worked hand in hand, chasing the hogs around the scale and the sheep and the goats. And I'm thinking, if you can't love these kids, then shame on you. So you have our word that we'll work very hard. Will we give them enough money to make everybody happy? It's always out of our control. But remember COVID, when nobody thought we could do it. We had the greatest sale of our career, right? And why did we do that? So because the parents were engaged. They wanted their kids to do well. And we did almost $1 million of that during COVID. I still think we could do that with or without COVID. So you know somebody who knows somebody, spread that rumor. Come to the Gold Country Fair. You can do add-ons. You can buy an animal. You can go in with your friends, your family. Let's make it so that when people get there, they'll say, you know what? Gold Country Fairgrounds may have a narrative we don't all love, but when push came to shove, they were all there for the kids. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ms. Sonia. Steph Chapman again. I've got a question I think is going to probably be directed to you, Sonia. There was a post recently on social media where you basically, like, I'm gonna go ahead and just read it. It says, "What an incredible opportunity for the Silver Dollar Fair. Glad they're getting the much needed attention and financial support that all California fairgrounds deserve. If the buyers and community truly have the best interest of the youth in agriculture, the support will remain strong. Change is hard, but adapt or get left behind." What did you mean by that last statement there?
That is one of my favorite quotes, adapt or get left behind. So we went to a WFA, which is a Western Fairs Association conference. So that's one of the training things that we talk about. And there was a guest speaker there, and she was saying how fairs, fairs are the old county thing. It's like the only entertainment they used to have. I mean, now we have talk, all the movie, and there's this and that and the other. And she said, adapt or get left behind. And basically that just means make sure you're understanding what the people want. Hear what the people want. So she wants a Comic-Con. We've got to have something that has a Comic-Con. We're going to adapt or she's going to leave, kind of thing. And so that's really the sense of my words there. That was from my personal social media, so if you don't mind, I don't like using my personal social media, but that's what social media is for, it gets out, whatever, that's okay. But basically that means
forever.
It is, it totally is, I understand that part. So nothing wrong about it, but adapt or get left behind. So you understand too the context of that. Silver Dollar Fair is getting resiliency funds, and they're doing a huge project on their fair. And what happened of that is that they have to move their junior livestock component kind of away from the fair just during construction and whatnot. So they made a post, they too limited comments. They did their thing. It's gonna happen. It's only gonna make the fair better because it's gonna provide, an upgrade to the facility. So yes, it was a necessary upgrade. If you've ever been to the Silver Dollar Fair, you would see it's gonna get prettier. It's not super pretty now, but that's in the sense of what I was talking about. And good for them that they're working on that and they're getting the help they deserve. But other than that, the livestock kids are gonna be okay. Kind of what Liza said, it piggybacks off of that. The people are gonna come. The support is there. We gotta remain positive. El Dorado County Fair too, they're a DAA, and they kind of have the same similar thing. And I just saw a newspaper article that said, what did it say? Oh, record numbers of all of the livestock kids. So I'm like, that's what I mean. We're gonna show up, and if I had the means, I'd buy all the animals myself too, but we're gonna show up when the time is right, and the kids are gonna do well. And if you know me, my heart's with the kids, and that's why I'm here. I have a degree in ag. My life is in ag. That is my passion. So as long as I'm here, and that's what we're doing, it's always going to be about ag for me. And so, and there are other things now on this side of the desk. But.
Thank you, Sonia.
All right. Oh, we got one gentleman over here.
Yeah, you've covered most stuff, and I appreciate your consideration on it. The noise, we have to live with. But we live right over here on Pleasant Avenue, and when you contracted with that company to park in there and move in and out, I don't know why you didn't have them as a requirement to water it down once in a while. And it's like when the vendors are in there, if you sit on the other side of Pleasant Road and you look up at the lights when these cars go in and out, and you can see the dust cloud come over, and it just impacts everybody along that drive. And our only consideration is if you would, once in a while, water it down.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that will be a requirement. We started that towards the end of their contract, but you're right, the dust was terrible. And of course, they come in at whatever speed they want to come in at. We're not always here to watch them. So that will be part of everything. I don't think we'll be doing that, but if we do rent it again that way, we are going to make them not only that, but put it back in the condition that it was prior to them getting there. So those are the kinds of things when we reach out to the neighbors and say, hey, come talk to us. That's excellent information because that can be written in a contract literally in seconds. So it's no problem. So thank you.
Also had a question. I live on Pleasant Avenue as well. And a lot of people go in there, and I called the city on this as well, and I understand it's not their jurisdiction. People go in, either after an event or just at night. And they'll be doing donuts out there for an hour, throwing gravel and stuff all up there at nighttime. Call the city police department non-emergency line. I understand that it's not their jurisdiction. Call the CHP, and they say, we don't respond to noise complaints. So people go in there anytime they want, doing donuts and stuff like that. And I've lived on Pleasant Avenue for a long time, and have seen the noise and all of that just go up like crazy. And I moved in into, you know, it's a fairgrounds, I understand the noise, that's Fridays, hey, it's my job to merge onto this street, not your job to, you know, do whatever I want just for one person. But, the noise and the dust and everything, and especially the Dry Diggins Festival, it's too big a thing for the size of neighborhood that you have. I understand it's a concert venue and all that other stuff, but when you can smell marijuana smoke in the morning that blows in through the open windows of your house, or it rattles your windows like crazy, and then people are doing donuts and brodies and stuff out in the dirt parking lot, is there any way to control that at all? Because the city can't do anything about it, the CHP will not respond to it, so what's the plan for that?
So, thank you, those are all great questions. As far as the plan, I think I mentioned earlier that CHP has agreed to have people on site now, so we will have at least 2 officers here through any event that's a certain size event. So they'll be here, so that helps, because first of all, if a call comes, now we got boots on the ground, right, to deal with whatever it is. So that, I think we're gonna start to see some progress on. I think you'll be happy with that. Second thing is, and I'm gonna keep repeating it, but I understand a lot of concerns for this, is the noise. We're working on that, positioning of speakers, monitoring sound, making sure they stay within the decibel range, making sure it's a hard stop when they're supposed to stop, and the music's not blaring into the neighborhood. One of the concerns that people had that I talked to, I got most of it through the city, but I also did talk to a couple of people directly. You know, we have the campsites inside here. What we learned is that there's, for lack of a better word, there's family campers and there's party campers. And I don't want to judge either one as better or worse, but so we're putting those, what we would call the party campers, further into the guts of the fairgrounds, which means you won't hear that. We can also control the noise thing. We've already met with the promoters. We're gonna have way more restrooms, which I think addresses a problem you haven't said yet, but it is a problem. So we're dealing with that. Right. As far as the donuts and all that, that's something we've been trying with my team for a long time. It was part of the contentious stuff that happened, is how do you close the fairgrounds down, but still keep it open to the public? And that's how we've got, I don't have a good answer yet. The rollout I did terrible on, so I'm not gonna try to tell you I know the answer, because I don't. But we gotta figure that out too. More security, we're doing that in our contracts. Hard stops in our contracts. As we write these contracts, these things you're talking about will be in there. It's, you know, again, I know I said this 3 or 4 times. Now I live in North Auburn. I'm gonna use me as an example. I'm in the flight path. I'm by ARD, regional. So, you know, the smell that you talk about, I have that when the Grateful Dead is going on. So I hear what you're saying, but it's a good event. I enjoy it. I make do, right? But making do is one thing. Having someone who's listening to you are 2 different things. So we're going to keep trying to improve the event. You're going to see them, some team, marketing team, is going to be knocking on doors on Pleasant and some of the other streets close by to let you know what the time of the event is, what to expect, what not to expect. So we're going to try to give you expectations, and we're going to honor those expectations. What we're going to need from you is input on, okay, are they working, are they not working, and then we'll try to go from there. But everything you said, I get it, and I wish I could wave it and say it's all gonna go away and be perfect, but I think we can do a much better job. And if you do have a concern, you know, call me or email me, because the city then gets all these bad calls, and it's gonna end up with me anyway. So why don't you just, you know, I said it at the beginning, CEO@goldcountryfair.com, call the office, leave a message, come in, introduce yourself to me. Those are easier, and then that way I'll give you my work phone, and you can call me if you need to. So we can help you communicate so that you don't, I think part of the frustration is you can't communicate with anyone. So you hear a noise, or you hear something going on. So talk to us, let us see what we can do to help minimize those things for you.
I know you've got gates at the
Yes.
at the
Right.
at the upper fairgrounds that
Yep.
even though you have open gate to come in and out and all of that, a car can't go up into the dirt parking lot and just throw produce all over the place.
And the long-term solution, it's already wired, by the way.
Yeah.
We started this process, but the idea is to have that gate shut.
Yeah.
And you'd have like a keypad there. So for people who need to get in, obviously can, but for people who are just looking to cause mischief, they won't be able to get in. So we're working on that.
All right.
Thank you. Hi, just one more quick question here. I know we're trying to wrap up. So we're talking about security, and it's great that you want to have security at events, which I appreciate. I would encourage to make sure that whatever security you do hire is licensed, insured, and bonded, and recognized through the state of California. I have brought this up to the owner of Fast Fridays. I've brought this up to the Auburn Chamber of Commerce and the Roseville Chamber of Commerce and the Rockland Chamber of Commerce. That Blue Line Security, run by Alan Perez, who is former APD, is not licensed. They are not bonded. They are not insured through the state of California. I've already checked on all of this stuff. He just recently received his own personal security license, and he's been assisting in security with Fast Friday events. So if an event occurred and they were running security, it could create a huge liability for the fairgrounds. So like I said, if you are going to have security, I would like to ask that you make sure that they are running a legal business, that they're licensed and bonded.
So as of fair last year, we hired a brand new company. They are meeting all the criteria that you listed, and they've been with us now since fair last year.
Awesome.
Fast Fridays, I don't want to speak for the owner there, but he's concerned too. He's hired the same group, so they're being utilized at Fast Fridays as well. And they're the group that we require when security is needed at your event, which is going to be dictated by your type of event. That's the security you will have to use. And the CHP will tell you whether it's 2, 3, 4, or whatever. But we have met that obligation. And thank you for bringing that to our attention, because let me tell you, when fair last year, when I found out that story you just shared, try to find a security firm with about 4 days before fair. It was a lot of work, but we lucked out, and he's been terrific ever since. So that's what we'll be using. The gentleman's name is Jeremy. What is the name of the company?
Event specialist.
Event Specialist.
Okay.
So we'll give him a shout out, Event Specialist. At the Grounds uses them as well. So
Okay.
I can't speak for everybody else, but I'm not sure who the chamber uses.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
I answer your question?
All right, well, that concludes our forum at the fairgrounds today. Thank you all for joining us. Like I said,
Is there a calculation used when you have events like dry digging that so many people require, say, a porta potty? Because having people urinating on the ground because they can't get into the bathrooms, I just wonder, how are you gonna resolve that?
So there actually is a requirement, just like at fair, I have to bring in a certain amount. So they're gonna bring in even more than what is necessary, but I want you to understand too, habits are habits, and even though we put everything we want to put, all we can do is discipline a person like that when we find something like that. But there will be way more than they have to by law, and we always bring in more at fair as well. It's not only about convenience, it's about will they be using the convenience. So we recognize that, and we'll continue to put more just to be safe, and hopefully people will use the porta potties or the regular restrooms.
So you require that of the vendor?
We do.
Okay.
I'd like to speak to that one specifically, dry diggins. I know that there was a couple comments or complaints about people going to the restroom outside of the bathrooms, specifically along that fence line up there. When we were able to pinpoint the location, I've now actually reached out to the promoters and let them know they need to have porta potties in that location. They had more than enough restrooms, just not properly placed. So we're working on placement of them with them.
all right. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you guys have any further follow-up questions or comments, please email us. We have CEO at Gold Country Fair.
Just real quick, I just wanted to clear that the chamber uses APD, and at the fair, at the Railhead, 4th of July, APD will be there. They're on our committee.
All Yeah,
So security, we use
didn't hear her,
APD.
APD will be at Railhead, as their security for the.
We'll have 2 officers.
Two officers.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for joining us, and Mary, there's water in the back, please grab a water.